Week 5, Client and Server Operating System Vulnerabilities and Network Protection Systems. Understanding vulnerabilities. In order to understand how to protect a network from attackers, an ethical hacker must first know how to protect or harden a network as the first line of defense. This unit focuses on securing the network to limit potential exposure to attackers. Windows operating system vulnerabilities. Many Windows OSs have serious vulnerabilities. For Windows 2000 and earlier, administrators must potentially disable, reconfigure, or uninstall several services and features that are not actively being utilized. For Windows XP, Vista, Server 2003 and 8, as well as Windows 7 and Windows 8, most services and features are disabled by default. Windows File Systems. The file system stores and manages information, including user-created, as well as the OS files needed to boot. The file system is the most vital part of any OS, which also means that it can be a vulnerability too. File Allocation Table. The File Allocation Table, or FAT, is the original Microsoft file system. FAT is supported by nearly all desktop and server OSs, and other than CDs and DVDs, FAT is also the standard file system for most removable media because of this multiple OS support. Later versions of FAT, for example FAT32 and VFAT, provide for larger file and disk sizes. The most serious shortcoming of FAT is that it doesn't support file-level access control lists, or ACLs, that are necessary for setting permissions on files. So in the multi-user environment, FAT use results in vulnerability. NTFS. New Technology File System, or NTFS, was first released as a high-end file system that added support for larger files, disk volumes, and ACL file security. Subsequent Windows versions included several upgrades. NTFS also provides alternate data streams, or ADSs, where it can stream or hide information behind existing files without affecting function, size, or other information. Several detection methods have been developed to see this hidden information. Remote Procedure Call, or RPC. This inter-process communication mechanism allows a program running on one host to run code on a remote host. However, this also allowed for a vulnerability. The Conflictor worm exploited this RPC. The Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer is a program that determines if a system is vulnerable due to an RPC-related issue. NetBIOS. Software loaded into memory enables a computer program to interact with a network resource or device. NetBIOS isn't so much a protocol, but more of an interface to a network protocol. The NetBIOS Extended User Interface, or NetBEUI, is a fast, efficient network protocol, which was the default networking protocol for Windows 95 and 98 before TCP/IP. The NetBEUI allows NetBIOS packets to be transmitted over TCP/IP. NBT is NetBIOS over TCP. NetBIOS Continued. Systems running newer Windows OSs share files and resources without using NetBIOS, but NetBIOS is still used for backward compatibility because budgets typically don't allow upgrading and customer expectations. Still, they must be met. Server Message Block, or SMB. SMB is used to share files that usually runs on top of NetBIOS, NetBEUI, and TCP/IP. Because SMB is so widely used, several hacking tools target SMB, and it took Microsoft 7 years to patch this vulnerability. Server message block, or SMB, continued. SMB2 was introduced in Windows Vista that provided several new features, being faster and more efficient. For Windows 7, Microsoft avoided reusing code, but still allowed backward compatibility by providing a virtual machine, or VM, called Windows XP mode. Common Internet File System, or CIFS. The Common Internet File System is a standard protocol that replaced SMB for Windows 2000 Server and later. Although SMB is still used for backwards compatibility, it is a remote file system protocol that enables sharing of network resources over the Internet, relying on other protocols to handle service announcements, which notifies users of available resources. CIFS continued. Enhancements include locking features, caching and read-ahead write behind, support for fault tolerance, capability to run more efficiently over dial-up, and support for anonymous and authenticated access. Server security methods allowed for share-level security and user-level security. CIFS continued. Attackers look for servers designated as domain controllers because these servers handle authentication. For Windows Server 2003 and 2008, the domain controller uses a global catalog server that keeps track of and locates resources among many objects in the domain. Null sessions. Null sessions are anonymous connections established without credentials that are used to display information about users, groups, shares, and password policies. Null sessions are necessary only if the network need to support older Windows versions. To enumerate NetBIOS vulnerabilities, you can use nbtstat, netview, netstat, ping, pathping, and telnet commands. Web services. IIS is the web service engine, but it installs with critical security vulnerabilities. To correct this, the IIS lockdown wizard locks down IIS versions 4.0 and 5.0. IIS 6.0 installs with a secure by default mode, where previous versions left crucial security holes. Server 2008 carries IIS 7, and Server 2012 has IIS 8.0. Keeping a system patched is important, and you should only configure only needed services. For example, do not install FTP if you eventually plan to use it. Only install service that you will currently use. SQL Server. SQL Server has many potential vulnerabilities. For example, the null system administrator, or SA password, has systems administrator access through the SA account, and the SA can have a blank password. This can potentially give attackers administrative access to any database or any database server. Therefore, lock it down with a strong password. Buffer overflows. A buffer or memory overflow occurs when data is written to a buffer that corrupts data in memory next to an allocated buffer. Normally, this occurs when copying strings of characters from one buffer to another. Since functions don't verify if the text string will fit that allocated buffer, attackers run shellcode to force this error and to crash the system and provide default administrative access. The programming languages C and C++ both lack built-in protection against overwriting data in memory, which makes it a good hacking tool.